I've been stressing, but I'm straight. We just gonna react to the video. Uh, yeah, no, I don't edit my videos, so
Do you say debt is bad because for the average person, that is a good principle to live by? And with that, I kind of agree with you. However, if people do utilize debt in an effective way, such as Graham, he's very responsible, very well researched on the markets and how he can leverage his money with debt. Do you think that that is a more effective way to grow fast if you're calculated with it?
It is a more effective way to grow fast if that's your goal. But what people leave out of the discussion is that you've increased your risk exponentially. More.
yes, yes, yes. I want to talk about that because I was gonna get my first retail property, and I was just gonna keep refinancing and getting another property's cash. But what y'all don't know is, yes, you're putting 10, 20% down, but your profit is way less. So, for example, it was a property that was 1.2 million. They made 109K a year. They wanted 7K. They wanted 7,900 a month. They wanted 7,900 a month. So they wanted roughly $8,000. The property make like 10,400 a month. So my my profit would be significantly less, and it's a chance that the interest rates might go up in the future, and and the loan company would have to adjust my rates. So that means in the future, I wouldn't be at, I would barely be profitable, and my profit would be small if I have any. But if you if you was to at least put a good chunk down or buy it cash, you would have a way bigger profit margin. And that's the thing about that. The thing about that they don't tell you is the people that are profitable over a long period of time are people that bought it cash or own majority of their property. See, I believe 80% should be cash, 20% should be loans because you can refinance, you can buy another property cash, so you can expand your portfolio with no money with a loan. So there's benefits of it, but but if you want to make money, you need to own it so you don't pay nobody nothing other than the taxes.
That equals more risk, period. Um, and so, after I went broke, I had to analyze and go, okay, what went wrong here? And because see, I had never lost money on a flip. I was not behind on the notes. They just called them.
Hmm.
They had the ability to do that because it was commercial paper. It wasn't traditional mortgages. It was 90-day paper. And so what it amounted to was, so I had proven track record of making money. I mean, I probably owned 2,000 pieces of real estate in my life. And so I was doing a lot of flips. And some of them I was doing in 24 hours. I would just buy them and flip them to another investor and make 10 grand and keep walking, that kind of stuff. So, but I was doing 100% financed.
Hmm.
I didn't put any money in it. Not a dime. I didn't have any money. So I talked a guy into giving me a 100% deal on this house. I flipped it. I made 10 grand. Hey, and I talked him into doing it again. Then I talked him into doing it again. Then I talked him into doing $1 million too. And with that one bank. And yeah, so it set me up. And so after I crashed, I kind of had to go through a CSI, an autopsy, and go, okay, why did the patient die?
Yeah.
So because everything I was taught, I grew up in the real estate business. And when you're in the real estate business as a profession, one of the rules is they take your risk meter out and they sit on the table and they break it. So you have no ability to perceive risk because everything's good, everything's going up, and it always works. And the mythology that just because something worked once, it's always going to work every time. So I had to go through kind of a healing of my heart in that regard and go, oh, wait a minute, this is risk. oh, wait a minute, OPM, other people's money. Yeah, it's kind of got that get rich quick slimy vibe to it, and all that. But there are people that more intelligently than that, use debt. And so there's a spectrum there. But even those are taking on
Yep, those people that do that, they do it very very smartly. That's one thing that they do not tell you. All these people that like Ben Mahala, what's that guy? Get Rich, um, Rich Dad Poor Dad. What they don't tell you is that when those time come when the rates are about to be adjusted, they sell a couple of their properties. That's what they don't tell you. So now they have a huge cash to protect themselves. So they sell a good amount of their properties, and then when the rates go back down, they buy it again. So those guys are extremely smart, but they're not telling you that. Every 4 to 5 years, sometimes three, the rates can be adjusted. You're gonna have to pay more in that.
risk. And so when you have Buffett says when the tide goes out, you can tell who's skinny dipping. So when you stress test with an economic problem of some kind, outside variable or inside variable, inside your organization or your life, inside your portfolio, or the economy, like a quarantine type thing comes up, or inflation or recession, and you stress test your theories, you can tell who's skinny dipping when the tide goes out, and if your theories don't last. And so the only one I've ever found, and this comes back to my faith journeys where it started, the borrower slave to the lender, I can find nowhere in Scripture that debt was used to bless people. And so then I got to think, okay, do I believe that, or do I believe my academic training? I've got a degree in finance, and I know how to run an IRR, and I know what the IRR looks like with debt and without debt, and it's not nearly as good unless you're leveraged. But you can run an IRR through the roof with leverage. Guess what's left out of the IRR calculation? There's no math inserted for risk. The IRR is agnostic to risk. It doesn't recognize it. And so while you see this great rate of return, there's zero risk showing up in there. The chance that you lose the thing, or the chance that the stress brings on your life, or what it does to your marriage, or what it does to your body to carry around the weight of that. None of that is parlayed into there. And real estate is unique in that way because other investment vehicles teach us to mathematically insert risk. For instance, two mutual funds, you would never compare an aggressive growth stock mutual fund with a growth in income, okay? And if you look at the chart, the growth in income is kind of like this, and the aggressive growth is like this, right? And that's the risk factor. And the highs and lows on that, you all probably know this is called, for our audience at home, the rapid change is measured by a thing called a beta. And a beta is a statistical measure of risk. It's a math number. And so a beta of 1.0, for those at home, means that particular mutual fund is exactly what the stock market is. It's S&P 500. It's doing what the stock market's doing. A beta of 2.0, it means it's twice as risky. So this is an aggressive growth emerging market type stock fund portfolio. And so it's twice as risky as the market. So the way you would adjust for risk between a beta of a 0.8, which might be like a growth in income, versus a beta of 2.0, is you insert the beta in an inverse in the math formula, and you adjust for risk so you can compare these two apples to apples, even though after risk, a post-risk analysis. We don't do that in real estate. No one ever talks about that in real estate. It doesn't even come up. And so but we have kind of a brain, and our brain says, oh, wait a minute, if I'm 110% leveraged in real estate, that's probably not good.
Where would you say the risk is, though, let's say on a 3% mortgage or an interest rate that's below inflation? Because from my perspective, it seems like there's less risk in having cash in the bank than tied up in a property that might not be as easily accessible. That in the event of a job loss or something happens, you'll have cash that you could easily access, versus in a property where it might be difficult to take out. Like if you need the money, like something comes up, and it exceeds your emergency fund, that maybe it's harder to tap into. if that's your last case resort.
Well, the difference is, are we talking about the shortest path to bankruptcy or the shortest path to wealth? What you're describing is not going to lead you to bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a nuanced argument
Sure.
at that point.
Okay.
And so, like, because we're not talking about a get-rich-quick 100%, portfolio,
Yeah.
and you're just trying to use an inflationary number to offset your interest rates, and that doesn't play long term. But where you've got a high cash position, a high equity position, lower debt, well, guess what? Your risk is so low that that the debt represents that your beta would not be a 2.0,
Yeah, sure.
It would be a 0.25.
Yeah.
But there is still a risk
Mm-hmm.
that is there that is not there if a house is 100% paid for, the property is 100% paid for. Because then if your tenant doesn't pay because of pandemic, and by the way, you can't evict them because of a moratorium on evictions, and so you got zero cash coming in and nothing you can do about it. Or they go into Chapter 13, take 6 months to get them out. You got zero cash coming in and not squat you can do about it. And legally, I mean, you're gonna get real criminal crap if you start messing with those things, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot. And so you're writing checks. I'm not. And I'm sitting here smiling and going, okay, we got a big pile of cash and we got all these buildings paid for, and we had entire segments of our revenue just evaporate with the quarantine. Like live events didn't exist, obviously, right? That kind of stuff. And we're going, this ain't good, because if this thing goes down into the red and we start burning that cash, what's our burn rate, and how long before we start, leadership doesn't take pay, and how long after that before we start having to furlough people or lay people off? And we're running those calculations during that short period of time that we were off. And but we did not have added to that the burn rate of the rent burning through the cash.
Yeah.
Or the payment on the buildings. I mean, can you imagine the payment on these buildings if I'd have been burning that cash during that? Holy crud.
Yeah.
But, so one less thing to worry about, right? But it's a risk analysis is what it is. And if you 100%, I run a 100% debt-free portfolio, and so I have zero pressure or virtually zero pressure to make that property inordinately perform in a stressful situation. So I make different decisions about tenants. I don't need a tenant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't get as many bad ones because I'm willing to go, we'll sit here another month. If it takes another month to fill it, that's better than putting that bozo in there. He's going to change his Harley oil in the living room. I can feel it, You know what I'm talking about? And so, but I remember when I had payments on properties in my other life, and I'd be going, I got to make this dadgum payment. I need to get a tenant in here. And, all of a sudden your little IRR thing you did when you bought the property and you ran your pro forma out on you ran out the NOI and you run the whole thing out through there. All of a sudden you go, oh, that's out the window. You're just like, crap, I got to make the payment. And you forget thinking about that. And so you kind of have that same look he had when he's talking about $7,000 a minute ago, and it's, but I've been.
All right, guys. But yeah, to sum it up, I know a lot of y'all are hard headed. You credit card guys and get women, but I mean I don't understand it. You know, things that don't make sense to me. I don't understand. I mean, if I'm not talking about the investment properties because obviously you're gonna make money from it, but just credit cards in general, it just don't make sense. You gotta use a credit card to pay this guy or this thing $100, right? With interest. So you're probably paying 105, 106, 110 when you pay the credit card back. But you could just use the $100 in your bank account and pay it back without the additional fee. But I don't know. You know, I don't know if there's an intelligent difference. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. It's a lot of low intelligence when it comes to credit. When it comes to money in general, people are just so kind of stupid. That's the video.